Okay, can I formally welcome everyone this morning to the Social Development Committee. We're open in public session, and as most people are aware, we have a fairly extensive agenda for today. So, again, formally welcome everyone here today. Just go through some housekeeping. Just could have asked everyone in the room to switch off all your electronic devices, telephones, and so on that do interfere with the recording system and so on. I could remind members of the protocols around use of your electronic tablets. Could I ask any member of the committee to declare any interest relevant to the agenda today? None to be declared. We move on. Apologies. We have apologies from Michael Copeland, and also to suggest that to state obviously that we're being advised that Roy Beggs will actually replace Michael as a member of this committee. So, could I ask members if we agree that we send a letter of thanks to Michael for his service to the committee over a lengthy period of time?
Apology from Sammy Wilson.
With apologies from Sammy Wilson. Thanks, Gregory, for that. Okay. Moving on then, no other apologies to record?
Chair, I'll have to leave early. Another policing board meeting to attend today.
Okay, Dolores. Thanks for that. Draft minutes of the meeting on the 29th of January. They're at page 5 of your pack. Members content with the minutes as drafted. Okay, thanks for that. Matters arising. Just to remind people that we have the clause-by-clause consideration of the pensions bill and subsequent evidence sessions. We have the draft report, and we'll consider that later in the agenda this morning. And 4.2 in matters arising, we have correspondence from the Speaker, and that's at page 4 of your tabled items. Okay, members, yes, people have that in front of them. Okay, so the justifies then, obviously in the back of that the Speaker has received correspondence from the Minister for Social Development in relation to the notice to compel the production of the fact-finding report. The Speaker has extended the deadline for the production of the fact-finding report to 5 p.m. today to allow the committee to consider the Minister's correspondence. Minister has asked in his correspondence to the Speaker if the Speaker is prepared to consider representations by the Department in much the same way as the High Court allows witnesses who are under summons to produce documents with the view to setting the notice aside. Obviously, we need to consider that this morning, and we probably have a number of options. First of all, that the Speaker wouldn't be taken or wouldn't be able to take a decision to extend with the matter for the committee, and I think the Speaker has advised the Minister of that. In other words, that the Minister would have to make his case to the committee for any further extension of the production of the report in terms of the time frame. So we can either say you have a letter from the Minister basically seeking an extension or indicating he wants to seek an extension. Since it's a matter for the committee to decide, I'm suggesting obviously we have a limited number of options, probably only really two really. One is whether indicate that the committee is not minded to offer an extension, or we could, in lieu of the fact that the Minister is referred to taking legal advice, that we might offer a short extension which would be time bound and be dependent on the Minister or his officials coming to explain or outline a case as to why they want a extension. And obviously the committee would consider that at that particular stage. So as I said, there's really only two options: either we don't accede to the request or we do. But I think in fairness to the committee, and because we've already heard twice from the Minister on this matter, and the committee was not minded to agree, so just taking in mind of the committees up to now, I imagine people still have a view they want the report. So members, there's really two options to move forward on that basis. I'd be certainly happy for a short extension, time bound, and on the basis that the Minister comes, but that's entirely a matter for the committee as a whole to consider. Dolores, you want?
Chair, this has been a very long running saga, and I thought all of the legal advice that one could have wanted would have been already sought and received by both the former Minister and indeed this Minister. So I'm at a loss to understand what further legal advice is going to change. It's going to change matters, and furthermore, I think our own legal advice was quite robust in relation to the action that the committee decided to take. There have also been a number of complaints, if you like, of how long this inquiry is running, and as you would well know, a lot of that's outside of the gift of the committee, because I think we have been more than fair to many of the witnesses and to the department in the production of papers and evidence. So I would be very loath to accede to any such request, but I will wait to hear how other members feel and see what's maybe best practice in terms of any fairness around the matter. But it is a report that I do think that we should have, and not only should have, but should have had a very long time ago without this level of frustrated efforts by others to deprive the committee of the report.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I think this further correspondence is just another illustration of the stalling tactics of the department. They know as well as we do what Section 44 says. They know the time limits. It's clear the Minister's had legal advice, because today's letter talks about getting further legal advice. So he's obviously had legal advice, and it's hard to imagine that legal advice says anything other than the compulsion of Section 44. I think, we're in danger again of allowing the committee to be treated with considerable contempt, and not just the committee, the statutory powers. So if there were to be even a short extension, say to Monday, I would want to add to that a recommendation that come 5 o'clock, say on Monday, that the committee proceed to refer the matter, if there has not been compliance, to the prosecuting authorities. Because the next step, if someone defies a Section 44, is the involvement of the Director of Public Prosecutions. So if the committee is minded to give any extension beyond 5 o'clock today, say till Monday, I would want to add the rider that come Monday at 5 o'clock, if there's no compliance, then we refer the matter to the relevant authorities.
Okay. Gregory?
Yeah, Chair, the matter has been referred back by the Speaker to the committee, as it would be totally appropriate. But I think in terms of delays, I think the wider public will really be looking at with almost disbelief if this committee, in all seriousness, starts to get very uptight after 19 months of this inquiry. And it hasn't been 19 months because the department is delayed in supplying papers. It's been 19 months because we decided it would be 19 months.
But deal with the matter, Gregory, at hand.
Yeah, I am dealing with it, and I intend to.
Please do.
So, let's not have people try and get on their high horse now about a day or two. I've messed about here for a year and a half.
Thanks, Chair, the messing about.
Order, please. Order, please. Let's not start the day in an acrimonious manner. Okay, Gregory, back to the agenda.
Yeah. And having messed about for that period of time, dragging witnesses back, not twice or 3 times, but on one occasion 5 times over a period of months. Now people are getting on their high horse for a few days. So I'd be quite content if the committee wanted to ask the Minister to come along to a committee meeting, a specially convened committee meeting on Monday or Tuesday. Hopefully by that time we'll have the paperwork, if the Minister is agreeable to release the paperwork, and if not, give us an explanation as to why he requires further time.
Well, that's about a million miles away from what we've heard already, Mickey Brady.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This report seems to have taken on a life of its own. But it just seems to me, if there's nothing in the report that is contrary, then why haven't we got it? It just seems very straightforward. It's a report that was done by the civil service. It's nothing to do with, well, I suppose it's departmental in that sense, but it was done because the person in question was a civil servant in a temporary capacity. So, the Minister has asked for some extension. I wouldn't have any particular problem, but I think it has to be very strictly time limited. if he does need, I'm not sure what other further legal advice he might want or need. But it just seems a ridiculous situation that this report, which is, in a sense, it's the parameters of the minister, it's done by the civil service. I'm not sure why there's such an issue around it. We've had some detail from Jenny Palmer, who gave some evidence too for that report. It seems fairly straightforward. Is there something to hide? You have to ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
Without being facetious or without being funny about it, it just seems to me the report should have been relatively straightforward in its findings. You have to assume that. But
Can I just remind people that what we're discussing here is whether or not we agree to extend the time frame for the production of a report. Okay, so some members are indicating that they're interested in, or would be of a mind that they would be willing to agree to an extension of the time frame for the production of a report. I am suggesting that we could do it within a number of days if we wish to do that. So it seems to me that the members are indicating, certainly everybody who's spoken would indicate they'd be reluctantly agreeable to a time frame being extended. If that's the case, then we could then discuss the detail of that. I think if we are prepared to extend the deadline, and that would be on the basis the Minister has outlined that he has sought legal advice and he's seeking further legal advice, well, we might also wish to avail of legal advice on the basis of what we hear from the Minister. I would be suggesting, and I'd be happy enough if we extend the time frame for even up to 2 weeks, and that's to allow in the intervening period that the Minister comes, as Gregory has outlined, makes a case to the committee, which this is not, because the committee hasn't decided that they will waive at all the need to compel the report, because we've already agreed to do that. So the question for us, it seems to me, that all we're really worrying about here at the minute is how long we're prepared to give by way of an extension. Whether it's 1 week or 2 weeks, I think for us, if we wish to avail of legal advice on the back of what we hear from the Minister, then we need to serve that notice on the Assembly Legal Services. And I think we can put them on standby to come now and advise us accordingly. That's why I'm indicating a 2 week time frame might be necessary. Now, at the end of the day, I don't want to by any way suggest that we're not taking the absolute robust approach to this matter, because this is a statutory-based inquiry. The fact that the committee, on a number of occasions, rejected the Minister's previous arguments for non-production of a report, the committee has already rejected that on a couple of occasions. That was not taken lightly. We've taken a very, as Dolores said, robust legal advice. So we have taken our decisions on that. We had issued through the Speaker, and you all know the mechanism for that is for a very clear purpose. Because whilst the committee has dealt with this on a statutory basis, the Speaker then issues a notice giving it the authority, never matter, of the corporate entity of the Assembly. So therefore, it's a very important matter. It won't go away. It will delay the committee business by at least another couple of weeks. That's outside of our gift if we decide to be responsive in a positive way to the Minister's request. So it's really down to members whether we agree to do it for 1 week or 2 weeks. I believe if we're going to extend it, we need to extend it long enough to allow us to avail ourselves of legal advice if we so determine we need that. It might be the case that if we have a presentation made to us by the Minister or officials, that we may well determine that we've heard nothing which will make us change our mind, and we could move to take a decision within that week, within that day. So I'm just simply saying, allow ourselves, I think be prudent if we're going to give an extension which allows us to avail of legal advice if we want to do that, if we're minded to do that. But this is only an extension of the time for the production of the report. The committee has not in any way indicated that to be minded to not seek the production of the report. I'm just making that very clear so that people aren't confused as to what they're actually deciding. Yeah.
This idea of giving the Minister the opportunity to come, we've already had 2 conflicting explanations from the Minister as to why he's refusing to hand over the report. I don't see in his letter to you today any request to come to the committee. He's simply asking that he gets further time to consider legal advice. Indeed, there never has been a request, as I understand it recently, from the Minister to come to the committee to explain anything. He made a request on Tuesday, to the Speaker to enable representations to him about why the order should be set aside. Unless I've missed it, I haven't seen a request from the Minister to make any representations to the committee. And I just wonder why, given we have two explanations from him as to why he's not producing the report, why we would need to do that.
I mean, that's why I feel we're being actually generous, because it is a statutory-based inquiry. We don't want to hold it in the disrepute. If a minister's coming forward saying he wants to have more time, well, we're prepared, I would always be prepared to look at that. You're absolutely right, there's nothing in the letter that we've received which indicates on what basis or whatever else, but and it's correspondence with the Speaker, which he should have had with us, but nevertheless he had it with the Speaker seeking an extension of time on the basis of legal advice he might wish to take. So that's fair enough. I'm prepared to go for another week or two if that needs to be the case, but put it on public record that this committee has been resolute in its insistence that we get that report, which is why we issued a Section 44 to the Speaker, and which is why I'm suggesting a deadline that whenever we then set it to, if we agree to do that, the deadline is for the production of the report, upon which if we don't receive it, unless we rescind that decision in the meantime, and I don't see any evidence of that as yet, but if we decide to hear from the Minister, I'd be saying conditional on the Minister coming to explain to the committee the reason why he wants an extension, and then the committee will consider that. But being no doubt that at the end of whatever date we set as a deadline, if the report is not produced, then we're for the courts. And I don't want to be taking that unprecedented step unless we have exhausted all opportunity to resolve it before that. So that's why I'm offering, I think this is a generous, if you like, resolution to this.
The second point I wanted to question was, is it even possible to extend a Section 44 application?
Chair, we've been advised, yes, it is. We can take the power resides within the committee. It goes through the Speaker, of course, but as long as the Speaker's content with the extension, yes, we can. And just to be clear for members, Chair, extension is an extension for the Minister to produce the fact-finding report, not to hear representations from the Minister.
That's why I'm concerned with this idea of hearing representations. I think any extension is an extension to the time limit on him producing the report.
And that's what that's why I've said that for the record. But of course, I mean, if somebody comes along and presents an argument, this committee will, as a corporate committee, take its decision on the basis of what.
But he hasn't asked to present an argument.
No, but I'm saying make it conditional. We can decide if we wish to extend the deadline on what basis we want to do that. It's entirely in our gift to do that. And I have made it very clear to the Minister that in previous discussions, that in my view the committee has made a clear determination on this, and the Department has made representations, as you, Jim, rightly say, on 2 occasions, and that was rejected by the committee on very, very solid legal advice. And in fact, I think that the tentative legal advice that I've received this week, that the committee remains on that very firm legal foundation. So I'm suggesting that the Minister comes in good faith seeking an extension, well, let him come and make the case for the extension, and on that basis then I would be prepared as a member of the committee to accede to a short time frame, and not be on the basis that the Minister or somebody comes along and actually argues the case. But the deadline extension is for the production of the report, because the committee hasn't changed its view on that. And I actually would find it'll be interesting to see how anybody could change the committee's mind on that, but that's up to people who are making a request.
Chair, can I just highlight a key point on this? Is that the Minister will be in breach after 5 o'clock today. If the committee doesn't agree to an extension today, then the Minister will be in breach. So the Minister will, I'm assuming the Minister will not be able to come to this committee meeting today and advise, and therefore maybe the time frame, Chair, would be, as an example, if the committee was to agree to an extension to next Thursday, the 12th, and but on the basis that it received a representation from the Minister on Monday, let's say, and the committee therefore had time to seek its own legal advice on that between Monday and Thursday, and then the committee considered its position on Thursday. And if the committee's position on Thursday was they were content that it didn't want therefore to exceed the 5 o'clock deadline next Thursday, then the Minister still has not up until that time to to produce the fact-finding report. So, in other words, the committee has built into its extension time frame, a date to hear representations from the Minister, opportunity for legal advice in the Assembly if required to be sought, and still time then to consider that legal advice and make a decision as to whether it was content with that, with wanting to proceed with receiving the report, or whether it wasn't, because that time frame was to be built in. That 5 o'clock next Thursday or 5 o'clock the following Thursday would be there. In other words, you need time perhaps to hear the Minister's representations, maybe seek legal advice on those representations, and then decide whether it was the committee was still content to go ahead and seek the report.
Gregory?
I wasn't quite clear on why there was uncertainty about which way the request was going. Jim seemed to be querying where it was that the Minister had requested to come to the committee. I understood the Minister hadn't. We're making the request to him, not him to us.
Well, it is a bit clumsy, I have to say, because the Minister wrote to the Speaker seeking an extension of time. The Speaker doesn't have that. It's the matter for this committee, so he
That's
actually...
because the Speaker wrote to him.
Well, the Speaker issued a section 44, as you well know, on the back of this committee's request.
But from his office to the Minister.
Well, of course, yeah, he did all right. So, obviously, the Speaker complied with his responsibility on the basis of the committee decision to issue a section 44. That was issued, as you know, by the Speaker, which represents every matter of this House in its entirety. And the Speaker has rightly advised the Minister that it's not for him to grant an extension as he requested, but he did accede to a 24-hour extension to 5 o'clock today, and suggested that the Minister could actually take the matter up, which he should have done in the first instance with the committee. So yes, we have a letter in from the committee, the Minister, to that effect. I personally think it's clumsy, but we have it, and at the end of the day, it still poses the same question. The committee, are we prepared to grant an extension for the time by which the report is produced? The committee is indicating that they are. We're just now working out what precisely the times for that extension might be, a week, 2 weeks. I'm suggesting you would need the 2 weeks just to build it in. You may not need to avail of it, but that's in case on the basis of what you might hear, because rather than just granting on a blank page an extension at a time, we want to do that on the basis that we actually hear an argument as to why we would grant an extension.
Well, why don't we extend to 5 o'clock next Thursday and write to the Minister and say, if he wishes to make representations to the committee next Thursday, we'll hear him?
I'm happy enough for that. That's...
Which I don't know what the Minister's diary is. I think we should write to him and ask either the Minister or some senior official. I don't know what the availability either of him or the Permanent Secretary or anyone else is, but we should hear from them in the incoming week, and based on that we then take a decision on which way to proceed beyond that, depending on what we're told, obviously.
As I say, I'm entirely easy. I think for me it makes sense to, if we're granting the time, an extended time, I'm building into that on the advice of the legal service and all the rest. We may want to avail of legal advice, we may not, but I'm saying it's conditional on us granting any extension beyond the basis of us hearing a cogent argument from the Minister. And what Jim's suggesting, we grant an extension to 5 o'clock next Thursday on the basis that we hear from the Minister or whoever he wants to send along to make an argument. I can entirely foresee if we get an argument, we may wish to say, well, okay, then we'll grant another week until we get legal advice. So it could happen. So for me, it's academic where we go for 1 week or 2 weeks. The fact of the matter is...
Or another option would be to suggest that we meet on Tuesday at lunchtime if the Minister comes. He's likely to be in and about the House on a Tuesday, particularly since he's got the Welfare Reform Bill. So I would have thought...
Which in and of itself may occupy quite a bit of his time.
Not between 12:30 and 2.
It may well do.
Well,
So I thought he is the luxury of that opportunity.
I don't think Tuesday is realistic, but anyway, go ahead.
Sorry, there seems to be quite a number of dates getting through it, but I actually find it strange
Anyway, can we stick to the...
I'm sticking to the thing. And Gregory saying that we should summon the minister here Monday or Tuesday, and then he's not sure whether his diary would be clear next Thursday. I find that strange, but
There's nobody here
I think
speaks to
we
the
could-
I don't know what his diary is.
Sorry, hold on a second, Fred, just be separate with me. There's nobody here speaks to the minister, okay, so...
Well, I'm just quoting what the member had said. And, but I do believe that we could argue this case out and come up with all sorts of dates. I propose that we give a week with a deadline next Thursday and ask the minister to come along and explain to the committee why he wants an extension.
Sorry, Chair, I'm very clear that whether the Minister comes or not is irrelevant. It's about the legal advice that he wants to present, and then we, I understood, may take further legal advice based on that. I understood the extension was purely around the production of the report as required to do so by statute, and that's the only thing that I'm going to agree to.
Yeah, but it is clear if we do that, by implication, Dolores, if we grant an extension for the production of the report, that's on the basis that somebody's making an argument that they want a time extension. But it have to come
But it's only
against this committee.
extended, Chair. Are we only agreeing that we're only extending the time frame for the delivery of the report to next Thursday at 5?
I'm not disputing that, but I'm just making a
That's
point.
what I want to make clear.
But I'm making a point, if the Minister was to come here on our meeting on Thursday and make an argument, you may be
Yes,
swayed
well,
by
that's
the argument
different, yeah.
and decide something further. I'm just making that
Okay,
point. I mean,
okay.
it's just by implication, but certainly not. It's not prejudicial to what anybody wants to do on the back of what they may hear. So
You mean this committee might be sort of open-minded, Chairman,
I
about
think we've been
this?
very open-minded and very generous.
Unlike some who
But
put the
anyway,
party first.
That would be
rather
a
than public
start.
interest.
Anyway,
That would certainly be a start after 19 months.
gentlemen,
Certainly would.
gentlemen and lady, that's it. Okay, so we have a proposal that we extend the production of the report to next Thursday, 5 p.m. on the basis that the Minister will have an opportunity to come along and make a presentation to the committee. Second, all agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, members, second item on matters arising is, as you know, the Minister is scheduled to table the Welfare Reform Bill in the Assembly on Tuesday, 10th of February. The Minister has tabled a number of amendments, I understand, as have some others. Now, as I had explained to the committee there a number of weeks ago, the committee had, obviously, in our consideration of the bill some time ago, I don't remember when it was,
February 2013.
February 2013, thanks Kevin for that, so there we are, nearly 2 years ago. So the committee anyway considered this 2 years ago, almost, and we did take extensive evidence, and I was very pleased that by way of unanimity, this committee agreed to oppose very significant elements of the bill and indicated it would wish to table a number of amendments. And those amendments, if I remember correctly, are in and around the issue of maximising Assembly control over future regulations which would come to the committee since the bill was enabling legislation. Those amendments were never actually tabled because obviously the bill was withdrawn ultimately. But nevertheless, the committee has a standing position of opposition to a number of clauses of the bill. But quite clearly, in the intervening period, I think most people would be quite pleased to know that obviously that Welfare Reform Bill has been superseded by the Stormont House Agreement, which is a five-party agreement, and the bill then will be tabled next week, and the Minister will speak to that. The Minister has recommendation now. It's obviously a lot of the issues, without going through all the detail, and just need to make it clear. Obviously, this committee a couple of weeks ago at my request agreed, if needs be, will convene a special meeting to discuss the extant position of the committee, which, as I've outlined a minute ago, is in opposition to the elements of the bill. But on the basis of that, as I say, previous scenario was superseded by the agreement, that the committee has two options. Either I can go to the chamber next week as the chair of the committee and basically outline factually that the committee had adopted a position, but that's now been superseded by the agreement, and obviously that report is no longer if you like, binding on the committee, or we can just convene a special meeting on Monday morning, and have tentatively aligned for officials to come here at 11 o'clock on Monday morning to go through the members and ministers' amendments, and then the committee can take a formal decision on the position it currently has. So as it were clear in the chamber on Tuesday that members have already considered the committee report which we issued on the basis of representation made by the department officials on the minister's amendments. So it's open, I mean, I'm open to either option. Maybe the fairest, most formal way of doing it is to convene a special meeting on Monday morning, hear the officials, and then take a decision on the basis of what the committee had previously agreed. Is there anything in the what they hear which makes the committee want to do something different? Well, of course, it's always been the case that members aren't bound by whatever is laid in the committee, because it's always up to members or parties to make whatever amendments or commentary on any piece of legislation that may wish, no matter what the committee will decide. So I'm up to members. So the only time we can really secure a special meeting will be 11 o'clock on Monday morning.
Could you just clarify one thing? I wasn't on the committee, obviously, on February 13, but the amendments that the committee was supporting, have they been tabled?
No.
So and the deadline for amendments is passed.
Yeah.
So there will be no committee amendments on Tuesday.
No committee amendments. There's notice of opposition to a number of clauses.
Notice of opposition to a number of clauses.
And was that done by, as one would table amendments?
Yes.
Formal notice?
Yes. So
They have not been withdrawn.
They have not been.
So if the committee changes its position, it'd be simply a matter of not moving those.
Well, it could be simply not moving, because they're not, at the end of the day, that was the committee's expressed view that they were opposed to a range of clauses. And
They're going to appear in the martial list.
yeah, and they would, and as I say, they would be, if they're still there, they will not be not moved. That would be one of the methods of doing that. Now, it can be done probably cleaner if we do a special meeting on Monday morning, which allows us to formalise, which allows then mandates myself on a much more clear remit.
But they're still going to be on the list.
To be honest. And I think, and I haven't had a look at all of it, but I mean, I'm very clear in my own mind, because if I'm very honest, and everybody around the committee agreed, with that was a unanimous report. Some members were more stridently in support of one thing or another. I'm satisfied that from what I've seen at the moment, it would be possibly a different outcome. But that's only my opinion, because a lot of people would believe that the new agreement actually addresses a lot of the concerns expressed by the committee at the time. So, but I can't. That's just my opinion now. It means nothing. So are members content that we be convening Monday morning at 11 o'clock?
Yes.
All officials coming to the committee. Okay, members, thank you for that. That's agreed then. It's easy. Okay.
Sorry, Chair, I just want to say, I believe that meeting will be in the Senate chamber, but we'll issue the details later this afternoon.
Okay, thank you for that, Ken. Thank you very much. Okay, we have correspondence from the Finance Committee. We'll see. Finance Personnel Committee have sent all committees a paper from a briefing they received on the budget bill, which brings supplementary estimates ahead of Monday's debate. They've noted that headroom, inverted commas, is included in the estimates for DSD. This is headroom of £12 million for housing stock. Are members content that the committee staff seek some further clarification from the department following today's meeting?
Yes.
Are we happy? Then we're moving on to the pensions bill now.
If you wish to, Chair, our officials are here.
Right,
Unless you
okay.
want to take.
Well,
Rearrange
do we have a time frame for the pensions clause, or is it open-ended?
It's open-ended, it's just how quickly you get through it. It depends on the extent of the discussions. Otherwise, Chair, it could be just a series of you putting questions as to whether members are content with the clauses, in which case I could go through it very quickly.
Okay, we kind of dealt with this last week, where there's a number of pauses around the room. Okay, so
Pause for the clause, but I
there were
think
pauses for clauses. I think people knew what was in the clauses last week. They look at some expressions. Okay, so we're moving on to the pensions bill, and this is the final clause by clause consideration. No one or other visitors will be enthralled by this next item. Okay, can I welcome formally, obviously, again to the committee, Jerry McCann, Seamus Cassidy and Doreen Boy. You're very welcome again to the committee. And then just to note then that the department has provided clarification on a number of outstanding issues that we're looking information on during the consideration process, and these are contained on page 8 of the members' tabled items. Additionally, Crews have also then provided a follow-up paper to their briefing, and that's at page 10 of your tabled items. And this paper makes clear some of the issues that they raised at their briefing. Remember, there were some lack of certainty on one or two issues, and that's been provided very helpfully by them. It does not seek to make changes to the pensions bill, but reflects ongoing issues that they have in relation to pensions. And obviously that will help to inform us by way of any commentary we make alongside the clause-by-clause consideration. Okay, so if I could then formally invite Jerry yourself then to just to bring any additional clarification that you had intended to bring before we proceed on the clause-by-clause.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's in terms of what we got in from Cruise. So do you all have a copy of the paper if I were to speak to it? Yeah. I think the first point which I should say is the point you made. It's in terms of what has been asked for as part of this paper isn't actually part of this bill. And the actual clauses which we have inside the bill are as such, all they do is that there shall be a scheme, and the actual scheme itself shall be set out by a set of regulations. Okay, so there are, as such, I think actually 4 or 5 points which won't be inside of the bill as such. Okay, so really we're just talking about how this might work. Okay, and so in actual practice. It's in terms, okay, first as to who shall actually do worse under the bill. And there are a number of figures under item 8 there inside of the Cruise paper. I think that we accept that overall that if you have a child and the fact that it has been cut from actually at the moment it could be paid for a period of 18 or 19 years, well obviously people shall end up getting less under this. However, the money now under the new system is being, as it were, aimed more at people who aren't that well off and people who fall into the actual lower end of the income scales shall actually end up getting far more out of this than they would under the existing system. And for the figures which we have, for the average notional gain and for the poorest income quartile shall be of the order of about £17,000. So again, it's the money has been taken from the pot and it's been used in a different way from the current system. However, those who gain most shall actually be the poorest. Okay, so that is one of the issues which is actually underpinning that. Those who lose shall actually be the better off people. Okay, and they will lose under this if they have children. Anybody who hasn't children and who is under age 45 at the moment, they get absolutely nothing. So therefore they will gain okay from this as well. Well, okay, are we happy enough with that bit about the losers and the winners? There was a bit of cost, if we move on there, into paragraph answer 10, okay, it's about the cost of the funerals. Again, and they've given a figure inside of ANI for 5,893. And from what we've been able to find from the references which they give, that figure has been issued by a company who are advising you to take out some insurance as to to help cover the cost of a funeral. That also covers things like having a wake, for example, which is part of the answer the overall cost. However, it's not something which the state has ever sought to provide for. I think the last day that I mentioned some of the figures which we had got from just actually phoning around for the undertaker for the cost of the actual funeral, and it was actually under half of the figure which they're citing. And there is also the extra help available if you be entitled and UC, for example, but you will be able to get help with the actual costs as such for the burial, etc. Okay, so there will be extra help available.
Okay.
No, just if you look at the non-discretionary social fund in terms of funeral expenses, it goes nowhere near covering the average funeral cost. I mean, you get about £700-800, the average funeral costs about £2,500. And that's without wakes or flowers or anything like that.
As I understand it, the
issue about insurance, I mean, many people really want to, are reluctant to take out insurance for something like that. And if you're a benefit, you can't afford it anyway.
No, sorry, I'm not meaning to argue that people should be taking out insurance. I'm just saying it's a background to the report as to how they were coming to the figures and all of these costings which they were looking at. I was only saying that by way of background. No, I certainly I ain't saying that people should be taking out insurance to cover fuel costs. No, that's not what I mean. I was only saying that as a word background
The
to
majority
the
of people
report.
can't afford to take out insurance.
As I understand it, you are able to get the amount of so £700.
It's roughly.
Plus, you also get the cost for the opening up of the grave, etc. You know, so those are separate. The burial costs are actually separate from that £700.
Well, I mean,
But I do accept that it may not cover totally the costs. Yeah.
probably cover about a third of it.
Okay, well, I mean, they're important issues, but we're dealing with here where we're
No, it's just
clarifying.
making the point.
Yeah, no, fair enough, but we'll be making points for the rest of the day, so we need to stick to the clause by clause to do this.
Carry on. Again, after the meeting, when I was having a quick word with the people from Cruise and the Child Bereavement Network, they seemed to really what they were looking to do was to change it for the whole of the UK, and they weren't looking for anything really for Northern Ireland only. I think that seemed to be what they were saying to me. So it's in terms of, if we move on into para 18 of their. And what they're saying is that what they're arguing for, it would be, it's important that these 3-year instalments were actually still disregarded from UC and that they wouldn't be taxed. Okay, and all of their costings work on that basis, that these two things wouldn't happen. Again, this week I have actually gone back to our colleagues in Britain to check that nothing has changed and that our understanding is in fact right, to make sure. And so what they were saying to us is that if these were to be over a 3-year period, if this were to be done for the whole of the UK, that they would have to be taken into account for UC, and that they would expect that they would also end up having to be taxed. If they are taken into account and for UC, the actual people who lose out shall be the people at the very bottom of the income scale. Okay, people who actually need the income as a support aspect of it. So to do this would actually take away from the poorest people.
If we accede to the paragraph 18 recommendations from Cruise,
Yeah, well, actually, what they're saying is that all of their costings are based on the fact that these payments wouldn't be taken into account for UC and that they wouldn't be taxed.
Yeah, so what you're saying
I was
is
speaking to GB, they're saying, well, actually, but they would be, but if they were to be extended in that way, that they think that they would have to take them into account for UC and that they would be taxed.
so what you're saying is that if you were, for example, to get a change in the way in which Cruise are offering or suggesting or hoping for, that would actually be disadvantageous to the least well off, that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, okay, fair enough.
Although in paragraph 19, they challenge the suggestion that they'd be seen as long-term benefits.
Yeah, well, I was about to come on to that. I don't think that an outside charity would be the ones who would dictate whether or not it is actually viewed as a long-term benefit. I can have my views on things, but however, at the end of the day, these will be taken into account. All I'm saying is, in terms of what we are being told by Britain, certainly during the time of the bill going through at Westminster, and so Lord Freud, who took the bill through the Lords, was very explicit on these points. So I'm just, and I do know that they say, they also say that they do not, and I think somewhere else, and we can talk about that when we come to it, and for the law of the EU, for example, but they challenge that as well. Again, all I can say is I don't think that this issue would fall to an outside charity to rule on.
But the point has been made, I mean, they made it here as a presentation and they've reiterated it again, so I mean, it wouldn't be without outside our gift if we wanted to add that as a concern.
No, we're certainly been inside the report. But again, I come back to the point that these issues aren't part of the bill itself.
Yeah.
These would be, as down the scheme itself, would end up being developed. But certainly, if the committee thought that it should be done that way, and if they wish to make a recommendation, certainly, but we would take it back to GB and, explore the issue further,
Well,
certainly. If in fact that's what the committee wants.
I think obviously members would be concerned if there was a disadvantageous consequential from that, being a partner otherwise, but Maggie Brady?
No, I think they make a valid point about the emerging costs for children. I mean, I've been in that position without prior to survivors' benefits or widowers' benefit being payable, but it's a valid enough point. And the argument that they make in terms of the 3 years, because there's a technicality, it's a benefit or a survivor's benefit, you know, there's that technicality. I'm not sure what the case law, because survivor's benefits in most European countries is relatively recent. I mean, it only happened in Britain because somebody was prepared to take the British government to the European court. Was prepared that a widower could not get benefit in that sense. So, I mean, I'm not sure what the case law, even in European terms, is in that. Because
I can ask James to speak slightly on that, but just if I could come back to the 3 years. Really, all that they're doing inside the 3 years is actually, and for the amount to be spread.
Yeah, well, that seems a
really
reasonable
really
request.
is what they're saying, which in itself implies that they don't think that people who are actually, as such, being paid the money inside year one can budget. I mean, really, that's what you're saying. But these people aren't actually fit to budget for themselves.
But the point that they're making is that there may be costs that you are not aware of initially, but which may emerge.
Yeah.
It seems a reasonable enough argument, because, you know, that can happen.
Yeah. No, I do accept that, but that's all part of budgeting. I mean, it's really what we're saying is, from our point of view as officials, we can't see how it would be worth the risk of those other things happening. For example, actually for the benefit end up being taxed. If in fact we can pay the people the same amount of money inside of year one, and it's not taxed and it's not taken into account for UEC, surely that's better to get them all of that money to them, as opposed to it being spread out over in 3 years and taken into account for UEC and it also being taxed, which means that they end up losing.
Yeah, but I mean, if they invested that in the first year and there was interest or notional income, then that would affect your benefit eventually.
I was for the amount of money we're talking about in the interest rates at the moment.
But you're on benefit,
you wouldn't
any
have
amount of
thought
money.
it's
Okay, I think the way we need to progress here with respect is that, Jerry, you're giving us clarification on some of the outstanding issues that people weren't terribly sure about. That was one of the issues that members were concerned about. Would it have a knock-on negative effect on people who are less well off? May well, may not, as you're saying. But can we be clear that as you proceed, Jerry, and this is just need to be a bit maybe rigid on this, that if you're giving us clarification, you might indicate, I think you need to clearly say this is not part of the bill, it won't be part of any one of these clauses, because we're here to deal with the clause by clause. All of the other issues which are important, which we'll have views on, we'll add them on afterwards, after we complete the clause by clause. So if you're actually, in a way, proceed on the basis that you're telling us what we need to hear by way of clarification, but you're saying very clearly, but you can set that to one side for the moment because it's not on the clause.
Well, okay, so to follow those parameters, then I don't have anything much more to say. But perhaps it might be helpful if I just clarify again for the members as to what the main planks of these are.
No, like I do think it's important that people will want to comment on some aspects of the bill, whether they're concerned about them or they're worried about there may be some inadvertent consequential impact. But if they're not on the clause, so we'll have to separate them out.
So if I could just say very, very quickly then, okay, what they mean. Just to confirm again that we have been on this week to Britain, and we have clarified that the main planks are that this benefit shall only be as such paid and for 1 year. Okay, it's a 1 year benefit. It should be split into two bits, one for people who have children and one who don't. Okay. And for the people over into pension age, which was raised last week by, I think, Mr. Brady, so the Category B pensions are going, and they're being axed, except for actually the one case, which is where the dependent spouse, as it were, is overstayed pension age prior to 16, and the other spouse hits pension age after 16, they still shall be paid an amount equal to the Cat BL or to the Cat B rate as appropriate. And so I think that summarises it just fine. And as I say, but the other issues really aren't inside the bill.
Okay, well, I'm hoping that Kevin and other clerks here are in a position to capture some of the concerns that have been raised through the evidence sessions and even here this morning again. And there's nothing said that we won't, because we'll have to deal with the clause by clause and then come back with the draft report, and we may well wish to make other commentary. So our members consent then, you've heard whatever clarification we've got there and raised issues yourselves, and we move then now into the formal clause by clause. Okay, so again, you know the procedure, I'll have to Go through the routine of reading each clause, see if members are content. And as I say, we'll go through the clause by clause, just people indicate their consent or otherwise do that. And again, just to reiterate, if people have other types of concern, we can all add them by way of recommendations or observations on the report. Okay, so moving then formally on then to the clause. Then clause 1, state pension, just as I have to read this in the record for every clause. Is the committee content with clause 1 is drafted? Agreed? Thank you very much. Committee accepts clause 1 is drafted. Clause 2, is the committee content with clause 2? I mean, I'm just going to read this on the record rather than tell you what the clause is. Is the committee content with clause 2 is drafted? Committee accepts clause 2 is drafted. Committee content with clause 3 is drafted? Agreed. The committee accepts clause 3 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 4 is drafted? Agreed. The committee accepts clause 4 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 5 is drafted? Agreed. The committee accepts clause 5 is drafted. Clause 6. The committee content with clause 6 is drafted. I'm just going to take all of the silences or whatever as agreement. The committee accepts clause 6 as drafted. Clause 7. Is the committee content with clause 7 is drafted? Agreed. The committee accepts clause 7 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 8 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 8 as drafted. The committee content with clause 9 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 9 is drafted. The committee content with clause 10 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 10 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 11 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 11 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 12 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 12 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 13 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 13 as drafted. The committee content with clause 14 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 14 as drafted. The committee content with clause 15 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 15 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 16 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 16 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 17 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 17 is drafted. The committee content with clause 18 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 18 is drafted. The committee content with clause 19 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 19 is drafted. The committee content with clause 20 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 20 as drafted. The committee content with clause 21 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 21 as drafted. The committee content with clause 22 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 22 as drafted. The committee content with clause 23 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 23 as drafted. The committee content with clause 24 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 24 is drafted. The committee content with clause 25 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 25 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 26 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 26 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 27 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 27 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 28 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 28 is drafted. Committee content with clause 29 is drafted. Committee accepts clause 29 is drafted. Is committee content with clause 30 is drafted. Committee accepts clause 30 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 31 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 31 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 32 is drafted. Committee accepts clause 32 is drafted. Committee content with clause 33 is drafted. Committee accepts clause 33 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 34 is drafted. The committee accepts clause 34 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 35 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 35 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 36 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 36 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 37 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 37 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 38 is drafted? The committee accepts clause 38 as drafted. Committee content with clause 39 is drafted. Committee accepts clause 39 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 40 is drafted? Committee accepts clause 40 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 44 is drafted? Committee accepts clause 44 is drafted.
41, 42 and 43.
All right. We'll do it again for the record. Is the committee content with clause 41 is drafted? Committee accepts clause 41 is drafted. Is the committee content with clause 42 as drafted? Committee accepts clause 42 as drafted. Clause 43, is the committee content with clause 43 as drafted? Committee accepts clause 43 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 44 as drafted? The committee accepts clause 44 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 45 as drafted? The committee accepts clause 45 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 46 as drafted? The committee accepts clause 46 as drafted. Just checking that you're all paying attention here. Yeah. Still awake. Is the committee content with clause 47 as drafted? The committee accepts clause 47 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 48 as drafted? The committee accepts clause 48 as drafted. The committee content with clause 49 as drafted? The committee accepts clause 49 as drafted. The committee content with clause 50 as drafted? The committee accepts clause 50 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 51 as drafted? The committee accepts clause 51 as drafted. Is the committee content with clause 52 as drafted? The committee accepts clause 52 as drafted. Committee content with clause 53 as drafted? Committee accepts clause 53 as drafted. Committee content with clause 54 as drafted? Committee accepts clause 54 as drafted. Is the committee content with schedule 1 as drafted? The committee accepts schedule 1 as drafted. Committee content with schedules 2 as drafted. Committee accepts schedule 2 as drafted. Committee content with schedule 3 as drafted. Committee accepts schedule 3 as drafted. Committee content with schedule 4 as drafted. Committee accepts schedule 4 as drafted. Committee content with schedule 5 as drafted. Committee accepts schedule 5 as drafted. The committee content with schedule 6 as drafted. The committee accepts schedule 6 as drafted. The committee content with schedule 7 as drafted. Committee accepts schedule 7 as drafted. Is the committee content with schedule 8 as drafted? The committee accepts schedule 8 as drafted. Is the committee content with schedules 9 as drafted? The committee accepts schedules 9 as drafted. Is the committee content with schedules 10 as drafted? The committee accepts schedules 10 as drafted. Is the committee content with schedules 11 as drafted? The committee accepts schedules 11 as drafted. Is the committee content with schedules 12 as drafted? The committee accepts schedules 12 as drafted. Is the content with schedules 13 as drafted? The committee accepts schedules 13 as drafted. Committee content with schedules 14 as drafted. Committee accepts schedules 14 as drafted. The committee content with schedules 15 as drafted. Committee accepts schedules 15 as drafted. Committee content with schedule 16 as drafted. The committee accepts schedule 16 as drafted. The committee content with schedule 17 as drafted. The committee accepts schedule 17 as drafted. Committee content with schedule 18 as drafted. Committee accepts schedule 18 as drafted. Committee content with schedule 19 as drafted. Committee accepts schedule 19 as drafted. Is the committee content with schedules 20 as drafted? Is content with accepts schedules 20 as drafted. And the long title of the bill, is the committee content with the long title of the bill? The committee accepts the long title of the bill. This concludes the committee's clause by clause consideration of the bill. As I said, as I noted at the beginning of this, it's a matter for the committee which wishes to make further representation on a range of issues, a number of which we've already covered. Kevin, are you happy enough you've captured those? We'll seek to bring those forward as a draft report. Okay, members, so on that basis then the official will draft the report based on all of those discussions, including the committee's concerns and how these may be addressed or any recommendations made by the committee. But I thank Jerry, yourself and your colleagues for your attention in this matter and support for the committee in addressing the pensions bill. So thanks very much for your very solid support to the committee and the conduct of our business. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
No. On to the next item on the agenda is the issue of the budget cuts, and we have a briefing this morning by the organised by the West Belfast Partnership Group. This was agreed to before Christmas, if I remember correctly. We have a number of representatives coming here this morning. Could I formally invite then Jerry McAteer, CEO of the West Belfast Partnership Board, Jerry McConville, Chairperson of the West Belfast Partnership Board, Glenda Davies, the Sandy Road Community Group, Breach, Arthur, South Belfast Partnership Board. Can I welcome them all to the table this morning, and thank you for your patience waiting through the earlier business of the committee. Just to advise members that we have a briefing paper from the partnership on page 13 of your pack. And obviously, just to remind ourselves that in advance of today's meeting, the committee staff sought some clarification from the department over potential implication of the budget on neighbourhood renewal and urban regeneration programmes. And the department has advised that the Minister is still in the process of considering options, and so the committee currently has no information additional to what it has heard at the briefing on the budget in December, and that this was a reduction of £3 million for neighbourhood renewal. Officials also noted the need for reduction in funding for 30 posts in regeneration within the department, with further reductions to facilitate the reform of local government. So again, I'm just not sure where we need to. I know I asked members to declare any interest earlier on relevant to today's agenda. I was a member of the West Belfast Partnership Board a number of years ago.
As was that.
As were you, Fra? Okay. You're no longer a member of the Partnership Board, no? Thank you, Brady.
I'm in the Committee of Confederation Community Groups in Uri.
Okay. Okay, members. So, well, and I mean, I've just for the record, I mean, I've also had discussions with the Minister and senior officials in the last even 48 hours, and I've been sort of led to give very firm assurance the budget has not been settled in terms of the spend and so on. Area by area, the Minister still had the sign off on all of that. So, on that basis, then, could I just open up to yourselves to brief the committee on the concerns that you have?
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thanks very much to the committee for the courtesy of giving us off your time today. We had originally written in from the West Belfast Partnership Board as we did a submission to the draft budget, and a number of organisations that we're representing today behind us here have also did submissions. However, since that we have sort of extended that across the city, and we've been in contact with groups across the city. Hence, we've broadened the representation out today to bring in also South Belfast, our colleagues from South Belfast who are with us, and we have the endorsement of many of the community groups across Belfast to make this presentation today. As you know, through Neighbourhood Renewal, we represent groups not only from the Partnership Board, but within the Partnership Board who represent groups across the west of the city, and the South Belfast Partnership Board's the same, and the other partnership boards. So it's a whole mixture of community organisations from across the city. And as you know, because through the work of DSD, the whole ethos of Neighbourhood Renewal is to work in the areas of highest deprivation in which we work, and many of us work and live within those areas. For example, if I can give a few examples from West Belfast, we have areas like the Upper Springfield and Falls who consistently rank 1 and 2 in terms of multiple deprivation. These are areas that experience extreme poverty and indeed rely on the services delivered through Neighbourhood Renewal to enhance their quality of life. As organisations, we also buy into DSD's vision, which is to help people change their lives for the better. In fact, Neighbourhood Renewal and the Community Investment Fund, the other fund delivered through DSD, have been important initiatives in helping deliver services and build the infrastructures in those areas to in fact help people change their lives for the better. We see Neighbourhood Renewal as a very, very important initiative within our areas, and in many ways it's like a three-legged stool because we have the statutory agencies who are involved, and DSD being the lead statutory agency among those. We have the community sector, and then we have the local people. So Neighbourhood Renewal as an initiative, and the theory of it does work very well in ensuring that those three combine together to deliver services in the best possible way to local people and the most accessible way to local people. In fact, without the local community sector, many statutory organisations would admit that it would be very hard for them to reach into the local community. The local community, the statutory agencies, including health, education, the police, the justice agency, all the different agencies that we work with, would say that there's a section of the community out there that's hard to reach. From our perspective, they're not hard to reach because we work and live with those people, and Neighbourhood Renewal helps us deliver services in those areas. Initially, we had come today, and what we had wanted to say was we had wanted to make a presentation to you today about what we've seen as possible cuts or impending cuts. However, in the last two days, that has changed because in the west of the city, all the neighbourhood partnerships have been told what those cuts are going to be, and it's frightening. What we have been told is that in the Upper Springfield, one of the areas of highest levels of deprivation, those cuts are going to be 40%. What they're in effect proposing through the local PRO office, and I'm not sure whether this is a local initiative, a ministerial-led initiative or a departmental initiative, we just don't know. But what they're saying is that they're cutting all their health and well-being in that area. Now that is a frightening prospect for an area of high deprivation such as that. What will that mean in that area? Well, if the short-term effect will be loss of much-needed services delivered at a local level, it will mean the loss of jobs in those areas, and those areas are areas of very, very high unemployment. It will be the loss of the infrastructure within those areas, because really, in effect, the cuts were that specific that they named organisations, they named posts, they named services. So organisations close, in effect, here at the end of March. Now, the cumulative effect of that will also be that statutory agencies will no longer be able to rely on their community partners to deliver in those areas. So we've cut a line to the local people. Community organisations have been asked to take a fresh look at how they draw down funding for their organisations, for their services. So we're being told that we need to build up the capacity of organisations to be able to, for example, tender for services. If we take the Upper Springfield as an example, Belfast Trust will be commissioning services for those areas. The Upper Springfield is being asked to tender for those services. From the 1st of April, they'll have nothing to tender with. There's no organisations there will be able to apply for the tender for trust services. So, in effect, besides wiping out the services, we're wiping out the future possibility of those areas attracting any funding. As well as that, we have the whole loss of captured learning and captured experience. That experience that local communities bring to the table, that knowledge that local communities bring to the table, which assist, we work in partnership with our statutory partners, which assist our statutory partners to deliver their services also. And also then, in the bigger picture, we have, and Chairperson, you alluded to it, the RPA, pending RPA. What we need to do is to be transferring regeneration powers to the local council in a very confident manner. There will be no confidence from our communities across Belfast, or indeed across neighbourhood renewal areas, if these cuts are rolled out in other areas the way they're proposed to be rolled out in West as we see them today. If I could, Charlene.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to change the focus a little bit and refer to value for money of community services in neighbourhood renewal and throughout the partnership areas. A little bit in about this in your briefing paper. But I think a frequent criticism of neighbourhood renewal and community development that is that some people perceive it to be a drain on public finances, and the argument that myself and my colleagues, and indeed our colleagues behind us in the gallery, would make today is that in fact the reverse is true, and that the allocation of finance to neighbourhood renewal is in effect an investment in communities, an investment in the programme for government, which is all about growing the economy whilst tackling disadvantage. And I would say as well that not just our own partnership, but the other partnerships and neighbourhood renewal partnerships are committed to value for money. I just want to give, if you bear with me, one or two examples of this. For example, in the last financial year, and this would be typical of a lot of the organisations sitting behind me here, in the last financial year, the Partnership Board secured core funding from DESD BRO of 180k. However, with that core funding, we have been able to employ 7 people on a full and part-time basis. And with that funding, we have been able to bring in a further 1.37 million. And if you look at the figures, in other words, for every pound, and I'm just sticking to finance here, actual money, every pound of neighbourhood renewal money that has come in, we have generated a leverage factor of 8.6 pounds. And if you look at that in terms of leverage factors in any type of business, for example, that's a very good one. This has came from other public funds, but significantly it's came from charitable funds, and it's also came from the private sector, which is probably the fourth leg to our stool that Jerry mentioned earlier. Significantly, I just want to say what we've done with that 1.3 million, because what we've done with it is to achieve practical outcomes, because we have an outcomes-based approach to the work that we do. And this money has went generally to frontline services for people. It's went to things like numeracy and literacy programmes, our GCSE renowned Easter schools and Saturday schools that we've developed over 15 years, support for after schools, support for family, young people and families in need, health programmes and economic development. So given that leverage factor and where we put that money, we would say that in fact neighbourhood renewal core funding is an excellent and sustainable investment, and it allows us as community groups to deliver DASD's core mission, which Jerry's talked about, which is to help people change their lives for the better, working with other delivery partners to tackle disadvantage and build sustainable communities. If I could just maybe drill down a little bit now and give you an example of the outcomes-based approach that we've taken, and I'll just talk maybe about our education programmes, because these are now extended right through north, south, east and west Belfast. We have, through, I mentioned earlier, our numeracy and literacy programmes, our Easter schools, etc. And DE figures indicate that in relation to 7 post-primary schools in West Belfast from 210 to 214, the outcomes in terms of GCSEs grades A to C have gone up by 11.9%. Significantly though, maths and English, on which we specifically concentrate, have went up by 8.9%. I think you would agree with me that that's a significant figure. Now, the Independent Education and Training Inspectorate reports would indicate that actually that is in a large measure due to the work that we're doing on Easter schools, maths and English. However, I wouldn't just say that it's just ourselves alone who have achieved that, because other reports indicate it's not just what we do, it's how we do it. And over those years we have built up an architecture in the west of the city which involves the entire education community, that's your nurseries, primary, post-primary, etc., working together collaboratively to achieve these outcomes. Some of our BRO money has also been used to hire a part-time economic development person. I think I am not speaking out of turn when I say that in a neighbourhood such as West Belfast, with the high unemployment and low business startups that we have, this is the only economic development person we have. One part-time person funded by BRO, DSD funds. I know there are enterprise centres and so on, but in the past year, myself and this person, indeed our chairman, have worked on a programme which we're just about to go out to tender with. This is a 3.3 million programme which will provide 200 full-time equivalent posts, up to 300 posts in the Greater Shankill area and in West Belfast as part of the West Belfast Shankill Pacific grouping. And these people will be the long-term unemployed, they will be under-unemployed, they will include what we would call, I don't know what the right phrase for this is, but the working poor. People who work their butts off, 2 and 3 jobs, but you know, are still under the poverty level with their families. So this is going to be directed towards them. Now, and the point I'm going to make again is not just that this is good DSD money invested wisely, not just in our organisation but in others. But I would use also, I also want to say that in fact many of these initiatives have spun out across the city. So my colleagues in South Belfast also have the likes of our education programmes. So too do our colleagues from East Belfast, the community groups there, North Belfast and so on. These are delivered right throughout the city now. So we're actually developing new growth, and in fact we're now regarded as an international example. OECD are coming in to do research with us in terms of our collaborative approaches. So I'm going to wind up by saying this. I've been advised directly that my budget is going to be cut by 20%, just the same as all the other budgets behind. In fact, Jerry mentioned in Upper Springfield by 40% from DSD. Now, where do I cut it? Because I'm not the greatest at maths, but if I look at 20%, that's taking out my economic person, potentially, who actually worked on a 3.3 million initiative. It could be taking out my infrastructure person. It could be taking out my economic person who is now going to be working on social clauses. I don't have any choice, because what we've learned yesterday and the day before is that actually our neighbourhood partnerships have been called in and DSD have told them where they're losing jobs. There's not even any discussion here around where, if you must cut, where do you cut, and so on. So anyway, I'll just wrap up, because I think I've made my points as strongly as I can, and I'll pass over to Glenda Davies. Glenda works for the Sandy Road Community Forum and is Vice Chair of South Belfast Partnership Board.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much, everyone, and we really do welcome the opportunity for having this, being able to come before you here today to kind of stress some of the issues that are facing the voluntary and community sector in South Belfast, and as Geraldine and Jerry have alluded to, right the way across the city and the whole region, in terms of some of the proposals coming from the department. In South Belfast, we have 2 neighbourhood renewal areas, 4 areas at risk, and Beaver and Milltown coming in with the council reprofile. South Belfast can somewhat mask some of the statistics with being such a diverse population, both economically and culturally. And we have the highest percentage of newcomers population within the city and, of course, the region. The Neighbourhood Renewal Programme here in South Belfast has supported the strategic role of our area partnership to deliver across urban regeneration and transition towards community planning. But we were also able to use that funding to leverage in contracts from the Public Health Agency to deliver into health, from DE to deliver education programmes, and then also, as Geraldine had alluded to, support a really vibrant economic forum, which is actually private sector led and has really good private sector people around it who are really supportive of the community and voluntary sector and the work that we're doing in South Belfast. At a community level, local organisations are supported through the Neighbourhood Renewal Programme and Areas at Risk to deliver a vast range of programmes to citizens, and that's around supporting community capacity, citizen engagement, and then to advocate on behalf of those who are most disadvantaged. And this is kind of, from our perspective, from the smallest women's group, who really just want to meet on a Thursday for a cup of tea and a chat, to really large social enterprises who are bidding for contracts to deliver public services. We've also the Women's Centre Childcare Fund is crucial, and that's a DSD programme. And then, obviously, in terms of advice and support, at a community level, the citizens of South Belfast and the city and region are really impacted in terms of proposed cuts from the department. But the success of neighbourhood renewal, and I know that I can speak for a lot of my colleagues, has been about embedding the programme for delivery right in the heart of communities. And it's enabled us as a sector and voluntary and community groups to support the communities as we go forward here. And we still are emerging from the conflict and transitioning towards a peaceful society. But I would say we're in the eye of a perfect storm. We've public sector reform, the economic and budgetary pressures that we're all facing, the implementation of welfare reform and how that's going to be handled, and then also the social housing reform programme and what that means. And really, all of this is around, there will be significant pressure on the citizens of this region. And I suppose our call here today, and from my own organisation, from the organisations here, is in the spirit of the Concordat that we all signed up to, both government and voluntary and community sector, that we want to continue to support you to help you deliver the programme for government that that you want to see delivered. We see this department, the Department for Social Development, this committee, and then by extension the Minister, as our champion for the voluntary and community sector, that we're not seen in the course of these cuts as the easy pickings, as during some of the budget consultation, a line on a budget, that's easy to be just taken off. We are here, as Jerry alluded to support citizens and you to go forward. And it's really important that we are not just treated as easy to be, cast off and as an easy cut at this time. So, Breeze, I think you want to come in.
Thank you, Glenda. Thank you. I suppose, Mr. Chairman, DSD is looked at as the defender of local communities, and so therefore our ask to your committee today is that you ask the Minister to reverse the decision. And at the start of this session you said that that the Minister hadn't made given you any indication that there were cuts, but I suppose we've given you examples of where groups have now been advised that there are up to 40% cuts, so maybe that would need to be checked out. But we would ask that you ask the Minister to reconsider and reverse this decision on what we presume to be the impending decisions across all neighbourhood renewal and at-risk areas. It'll be a huge, huge loss. I think there's a huge... I don't think people are aware. I just want to let you know that I'm seconded out from the public sector to work and lead South Belfast, and I've really had my eyes opened in the last 2 years about the value for money that is being delivered at grassroots level, and I think particularly we really need to look at that connection and the role that they play, and please ask the Minister to reconsider.
Just for the record, in fairness to the Minister, I didn't say that the Minister said that there was no cuts anywhere, and the Minister is very clear. Obviously there are cuts in the budget, which is evident, but what the Minister was given assurances was that, as far as he was concerned, there wouldn't be just thematic cuts, or they would be looking very closely at every organisation's viability and the services that they provide. So certainly the indication from the Minister to me, and I take that absolutely face value, and with the integrity of the Minister, that he was determined to protect communities, protect frontline services. So didn't say there was no cuts, okay. But certainly what he did say was, as of yesterday, that he himself had not signed off on any of these actual final budgetary decisions. So, because I spoke to him yesterday about organisations being told up to 40% of their money would go.
Okay.
I'm not sure it was sure me to say that decision hadn't finally been taken. So. Okay. Jim wanted in Fran and Paula.
Okay, thanks for coming. Just want to explore a couple of things. You talked about value for money.
Yeah.
And you said that of the 180,000 from BRO, you then were able to lever in 1.37 million. How much of that was other public money?
There would have been other public money from the Department of Education.
Yes. Well, can you give us a breakdown of that?
I think it was something like 890.
So if the 1,370,000, 890 came from the Department of Education.
Department of Health.
That's a further figure?
Yeah.
How much is it?
I'd have to check for you, Jim.
Well, much of it didn't come from public funds.
I think we would have had private sector donations in the region of about 55,000.
So the real...
I haven't brought my annual accounts with me, but
Yeah.
and they would be donations towards an educational bursary scheme that we operate. We've collected £500,000 for over the past 10 years. Those bursaries go to people to enable them to take up university or higher further training positions.
But you can provide some
But I think the bulk of, yes, certainly the bulk of our money would be from charitable funds and from other public sector funds, as I said, the private sector I've mentioned. And basically, these funds enable those departments to deliver at grassroots level into the most needy areas and groups of people in the west of the city.
But in terms of getting a vision for what the partnership wants to do, you're very heavily reliant, almost exclusively, on public funding.
That would be fair.
In terms of economic regeneration and growing the economy, is it that you're not getting any help from the private sector, or you're not reaching out to the private sector, or that you're just happy to be public funding dependent?
Right. Well, over.
Sorry, could I
was going to talk
come in just as chair there? Tim, I think one of the things that the funding from DSD does, it enables the core of an organisation to exist. So some of the money that the Partnership Board and I need my own organisation, Falls Community Council, does is we then competitively tender for other contracts that are out from public money. So these contracts come out from either health or education or other departments are open to public tender. And it enables us to have the expertise and the capacity to be able to tender for those services. So while certainly some of the money is granted, a lot of it is earned through competitive tendering. And in that sense, while it is public money, you know, that money could also have went to the private sector as well.
So, I understand what you're saying, but in terms of where's the focus, or is there a focus at all on economic regeneration, on real growth there to show that communities can be pulled up?
Do you want me to answer that first, or either of my two colleagues? Do you want to?
One of the focuses that South Belfast has is on economic regeneration, and one of the models that I looked at was West Belfast and the artists, and Peter Dixon from Phoenix Gas. I was able to ask him, would he lead the economic regeneration? So we looked at a number of models. We looked at what West was doing. We fully understand that there will be an amount of public money that is required in the first couple of years to really allow you to engage and fully exploit the corporate social responsibilities and build relationships and try and target jobs back into those disadvantaged areas. If I could give you an example, we have a very, very strong and vibrant economic forum, but as I said, it was based, I didn't make it up, I looked at actually West Belfast, and if it works, replicate it. But from that there, I was able to work with Concentrix, I've been able to work with O'Hare McGovern, I've been able to work with a number of big private sector organisations, and more recently Deloitte. Now Deloitte have academies, we're looking at the digital industries and the needs to build our capacity. We have people in the areas in the community that have had no access, but it's not just about academies and maybe earn as you learn, it's actually about level 1 training and seeing how we can build the capacity to move them into jobs. Yes. So we're liaising with companies. If that wasn't there, we wouldn't be able to be that go-between.
But apart from the jobs that keep the Partnership Board going, its own jobs, how many jobs could you say have actually been created as a product?
I created 11 through going through to the neighbourhood renewal areas and working with them and doing entry-level training, and that was just in this year, and certainly that's the approach that I will be taking in the future. Now that might small fry, but I think if you get one job in a community, it can really transform the views.
Yeah, you mentioned economic forum. Sorry,
I
just want to clarify a couple of things. You mentioned your economic forum. Is that within your Partnership Board, or is that the West Belfast Economic Forum?
That's mine in South, but what I was saying to you was, I'm South, okay?
Yes.
But I've been out for 2 years, Jim, but I looked at the West Belfast model to see, about engagement, what works. And so I have used their model and I'm applying it to South, but there is crossover.
There's a West Belfast Partnership Board, which is people, and there's a West Belfast Economic Forum.
Yes, which we host. I could explain that one for you.
Right, just explain the synergy there.
So look, I mean, the way the partnership operates is it operates through a range of committees. So there is one on education, one on the environment, and I'll come to the one on economic development. That would be chaired by Seamus O'Prey from the Artists Group, and that would encompass within that economic forum a range of companies, such as Bombardier Airspace. So we've tried to go for big companies and small. It would also take in local training agencies, small businesses, West Belfast Traders Group and what have you. And so that forum basically are focused on looking at what are the needs of West Belfast, but actually what could we focus on to actually bring people together to grow our local economy. In the past 3 years, we're just moving into a new strategic phase, but in the past 3 years, our focus has been primarily on creative industries, and for that we have been involved in bringing together different organisations, different businesses from creative industries, and engaging with the likes of the schools and the career advisors and so on in that. Jim, as an organisation, we do not have, for example, we don't generate, I guess, we don't have a trading arm that generates us as a business. Now, other partnerships do, and the organisations behind me are like world class at this, and I'm looking at Upper Springfield Development Trust, where in fact you can generate your own money through things like developing your own building, capital developments that you then lease out. East Belfast do this very well. Our actual model in the west of the city was to have a singular focus on bringing together key partners who would regenerate the area rather than us as a business. So, for example, some of the key work that we've been involved in over the years has been with the Shankill partnership to set up the West Belfast Shankill Jobs Task Force, which involved 5 different government departments and ministers, and ran for a period of years. And again, through that, we were able to pull together an employment services board. Our other part of architecture was the West Belfast Shankill Employers Forum. That was chaired by Michael Ryan from Bombardier Aerospace, and brought together a range of segments from different industries: utilities, financial services, call centres, construction and so on. And with that particular group, they were able to earmark positions and jobs for people from West Belfast and Shankill. So our kind of thrust, Jim, has been, I guess, strategic. It's about, you know, as the word would say, partnership, bringing partners together, collaborative working. If you were to go back and talk to Michael Ryan, at one point he was able to, 864 posts that were created through that work. I mean, for example, Bombardier, we helped them deliver some of their business objectives. They were simply not getting people from West Belfast. They had to up their numbers, or from Shankill. But we set up an initial training programme with them based in Springvale and impact training on the Shankill, whereby people could access those initial training posts, build their confidence, and then move down to Bombardier. And again, our other partner that we brought in there was BMET, and that got a lot of ministerial support at the time. That has been our particular modus operandi. But in terms, so that's where our focus is as a board. Our focus isn't in our own sort of income generation business wing. But having said that, as Jerry said, what we do is we reply to tenders and so on that government put out, or we discuss with particular departments such as education how we can actually get our levels up. And I think it demonstrated that we are impacting there. So that's us. The guys behind you, many of them are income generating and are some of the finest social enterprise businesses I think I've seen globally. I've looked at community development corporations in the States and Europe and so on. I think what we have here in our own city, and in fact Northern Ireland, is really probably among the best in the world in terms of social enterprise.
Just bring Glenn in there for a minute, Jim, if you don't mind, just to back on some of your points that you raised.
I just wanted to pick up on the member's point around, what we did and how we generate, private sector. So just from a small local community neighbourhood organisation, for the £46,000 that we received from DSD, we employed 1 full-time person and a number of associate people in terms of admin and finance. We also then, through access, that person being able to access as a partnership through Dell European Social Fund, employed 1 further young person as a youth advocate, but we have also created 3 full-time jobs as a tourism programme that will be entirely self-sustaining through the social enterprise model. So from that one investment of £46,000, you have a variety of people employed, and sustainable employment. It's not employment that's just, going to be year on year. And obviously, in terms of the legacy of community development, we would ultimately be seeking to wind down our reliance on the core in relation to grant dependence. But we are in that process, and we have to be facilitated as groups to do that. And
I suppose, Chairman, that's the point I was really driving at. Is there a vision to progress from being so public sector dependent to being something more sustainable than that?
Terry or whatever.
Well, yes, there would be. But in terms of neighbourhood renewal, Neighbourhood renewal funding isn't put in primarily as a job creation fund. I mean, with all respect, that would be Invest NI's job to bring in employers. But what we can do is, with neighbourhood renewal money, we can prepare local community, we can prepare the most, as they're called, hard to reach, those further away from the workplace. We can prepare those to take the opportunities. So in many ways we're enablers as opposed to those primarily bringing in investment. Now, from a community sector point of view, of course we need to be looking at new ways of income generation. But as I've said in the previous, if you take the Upper Springfield for an example, the Upper Springfield has high levels of multiple deprivation, including high levels of ill health and well-being. If you completely obliterate that sector from that area, then there is no chance of that area being able to compete competitively for any services that are out for tender for those areas. So, you know, I would go back to the core of what neighbourhood renewal is about. It's about, you know, working in local areas at a very, very grassroots level to provide services for those people most in need and to enable them to take their steps up the ladder and out of poverty. Others need to work with us and do work with us. But in terms of job creation, you know, we're not in a position to attract in foreign investment or, you know, that's Invest NI, politicians, etc. But we're certainly a willing partner to work in collaboration to make sure that local people are able to access those opportunities that come their way.
Okay, I want to move it on because a number of our members are, and we'll come back at some of this point, and maybe I'm sure other members will be crossing some of those things. So I'm not leaving any of the things unsaid, but I'll move on to other members because we've got Fra, Paula, and Gregory, and Mickey. So we'll have all the opportunity to make the points as we go on through the session. Fra.
Thank you, and you're very welcome here this morning. And I know that sometimes a lot of the discussion can move around economic development and many jobs being created, but sometimes, in some ways, that ignores the extended work that is done. You know, even when you see people involved in community education, how many people who their futures to what goes on there, suicide awareness, how many lives have been saved by the people who run suicide awareness, women's groups, how much provision has been made there to ensure that women advance, housing, trying to make life better for communities in terms of housing. See, you can't quantify in the term what you actually get out of that. And it's amazing when you come to, because I always believe that the wider community development sector are the first protocol of cuts, and it's been like that there and yet they're the most enthusiastic when it comes to trying to provide a service to the communities that they represent and they exist in. And I've argued for quite a long time that one of the things that's absent in all these cuts is an assessment of the worth of the community sector and what they provide. How much money is actually saved by what is a relatively small investment across the board. And I know that we've been at pains for a considerable period of time to do that. So you think when you're getting the cuts, whether it's 40%, whether it's 20% in other areas or whatever, that there would be some idea or some assessment of the impact that those cuts would have within a community. Because you're right, you know, if these cuts go ahead, then the impact that it could have on people's lives within them communities is unknown. The impact could be have serious implications for the future of many communities, but the communities already hard pressed. But just to go backwards, I know that in terms of the cuts to the budget or the proposed cuts, and Alex Wright, I know that he has been dealing with the minister and been dealing with people myself just try to make some sense out of the whole thing. And then I look at the schemes like Building Successful Communities that came through under another minister, and that it's has no idea of where it's going at present. There's no real idea of what the outcomes would be for that. And yet it's almost the exact amount that's been cut from neighbourhood renewal seems to be transferred to that there. And especially in a year when everything's going to change anyway, because you're going in the council. But I think that probably one of the important things is, and I've raised this at a committee a while ago, is that when people look at a community group or a community project, that the withdrawal of one job or the funding for one job could have a major impact on the lives of people because a project could fall. Could you comment on the Building Successful Communities proposal and the duplication that may be put in terms of neighbourhood renewal?
If I could just briefly comment on it, you know, there was a meeting yesterday in my own building of part of that section from Building Sustainable Communities, which DSD representatives were at, and while they were meeting about that project, we were down being briefed on the cuts that we were being given through neighbourhood renewal. So the meeting was being held in our thing about building sustainable communities, and at the same time we were being by another branch at DSD about the cuts. Within the neighbourhood renewal areas, we're looking at that initiative and saying we're not sure just where it came from. We're not sure what difference it's going to make. We're not sure of what relevance it has. Neighbourhood renewal was a good initiative. It had many flaws. You know, one of them was that other departments, for example, didn't buy into it. So while DSD were many times driving a lonely furrow there, we then seen another DSD initiative that seemed to weaken neighbourhood renewal. So within the local community, certainly where we are, there's many questions over that initiative and over its relevance and how it's going to impact on poverty in the area.
I don't want to kind of stray on another kind of policy, specific policy issue. It seems to me that there's a bit of an irony that the department, which is in a position to make cuts on some organisations, are talking to those same organisations about delivering other policies off the department. So I just think that's an irony I want to put on the record, but I don't want to go into a discussion around building successful communities as a project or a policy. So the points made, you have enough points made and you've have enough. Okay, Paula.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Can I just go back to what you'd said about the cuts in the health and wellbeing services? Mickey and I both sit on the Health Committee. We know what the objectives of the Minister are in health. We know about transforming your care and the objectives of it, and just recently the Donaldson report and empowering people to take control of their own health and well-being. So, I mean, this cut alone flies totally in the face of what Programme for Government is as well. So, who was it again made that?
It was Belfast West, the BRO.
BRO, okay, without any consultation with yourselves?
No, there was no
consultation.
No consultation.
We got a phone call on Tuesday to say, could all the neighbourhood chairs, neighbourhood partnership chairs, make themselves available for meetings on Wednesday and Thursday. In fact, Falls, which is one of the other areas of Hyde Ever, have still to get their cut, and Lennoxtown is still to get their cut because they're meeting today at 3 o'clock and Lennoxtown's tomorrow morning.
And for the record, the South Belfast, there's an area partnership and two neighbourhood partnerships. You're going to have your discussions with DSD, but we're expecting between 5 and 20% cuts. So, and as an area partnership, they haven't made any decision yet. But we would hold a contract for the delivery of health within the area partnership that covers Sandy Row, the village, the markets actually deals, you know, delivers strategically, but we haven't been made aware of what's going to happen, you know.
And again, I know as a
if we're not there, we can't take the PHA money, you know.
The work, yes, and again, it's going against the Public Health Agency and their ethos and their mantra and what they and the change delivery within our communities. So this is extremely worrying for someone who sits on the Health Committee. That this is being cut. Another great worry for me, and Glenda had touched on a wee bit earlier as well, is how this is going to affect the women's sector. because I know, as the chair of our all-party group on Women, Peace and Security, the work that is being done and the empowerment of women. And I know within the Belfast area we have some of the fantastic social enterprises and social economies. But I also know, because I've spoken to rural women as well, that they are looking at the Belfast models and saying, yeah, and there's lots of conversations taking place. So if you can just give me some indication about what you think, because this is something that I feel very strongly about. It's something that we're discussing in the Assembly. It's poignant at the moment. We're even doing a research looking at women in politics, but generally women and the empowerment of women. How's that going to, what difficulties are going to face with that?
If I take that, since I raised it as a point, obviously VCU has funded through DST the Women's Centre Childcare Fund, which all the women's centres across the region would be party to in terms of the childcare and the importance of childcare for women in order to educate and then ultimately move into work or further higher education. And the impact of any cuts to that budget, you know, in a sector that's already struggling, you know, we obviously as women, the NICFA report in terms of the economic value to the provision of universal childcare is out there for consultation and for supporting government in making the decision. But until such times, it's really important that women in local communities are given support. So the Women's Centre in South Belfast, Windsor Women's Centre, very active social enterprise, delivering across all themes in terms of health and well-being, childcare, community development, cultural support, and particularly delivering to some of those women who are at the most margins of our society, women who are leaving custody, who are through probation.
We know that there are the women within our society whose voices have been suppressed. We know that. And we know that the work that is being done is empowering women, empowering our communities, empowering their children. Yeah. It's so important, it's vital.
Yeah. We have behind us here today, we have behind us here today people from the Falls Women's Centre, and as Glenda said, they're very much involved in working on a networking basis with Shankill Women's Centre and the other ones that you mentioned there across the city and further afield. And yeah, you know, I mean, if you want to regenerate a community, women are a very, very important part of that.
And I make no apologies here
as
today
mothers and so on. And there have been cuts. These have been not discussed with the Women's Centre. They've literally been told where they're going to lose their staff members and so on.
Well, everybody's on protective notice, basically, aren't they?
Well, just yesterday, I mean, we did our meeting with BRO. I'm chair of a group called the West Wide Groups, so groups that work in more than one area partnership. Falls Women's Centre are a part of that. And when we were called in, the detail that we were given was, it was like literally, here's the organisation, here's what they're losing. So the Women's Centre, for example, under this proposal will lose their advice worker and their communications officer. Now, the advice worker, presumably the argument that they'll make is that, which I know they've made, is Belfast City Council offers advice services through a consortium. The Women's Centre is not part of that, but the Women's Centre offers a specialist advice. It's not just your general advice for someone coming in off the street. It's advice in relation to their clientele. So it's very specialist, it's very personal, it's very much needed. The communications officer is a much needed post within that organisation because it's communicating to a specific sector. It's different from a general community organisation that's appealing to the wider community. The women's centres and the women's sector are appealing to a specific clientele who they know, they deal with, and who trust them to deliver services to them and on their behalf. So, in terms of even West, just those two processes are a devastating blow to the women's sector in West Belfast, and as such, their ability to work across the city and across the region as well.
I just,
Bridge, you're all right, don't be panicking.
I'm that desperate to talk
Go
about
ahead.
women. I just
Don't
wanted
need to be
to,
desperate. We're desperate, you're not, don't have to be.
I wanted to reassure you, Paula, that what I try and do is to highlight and shine, I suppose, a spotlight on the work of Windsor women. And certainly I, in the last 2 years, haven't had real concerns about how the funding has changed. Now, I think this is nearly the final nail in the coffin, you know, this DST budget. But I had a senior person out from OFM, DFM to highlight that just last week, because they are catalysts for everything within the community. I have been there, you know, I've been to Hydebank, which is in my patch. I know about the reformation, the rehabilitation agenda. That is being delivered. All of that is being done, all that support for women. We're looking at maybe poorer educational outcomes in some of our communities. We need to invest, we need to make sure that people feel good about themselves and that they can support their families. You know, when you can't get funding, we don't see all the work that is done, but it's a very worrying time.
It's extremely worrying. Can I just, I mean, all of the groups you've mentioned, I would know of them all, and I know, I can see Falls Women's Group in the back there as well.
Good.
I have met with them, and I think that's something special we have within the women's sector.
Absolutely.
Where we do work together, and we do come together for the greater good. And I wouldn't want to see, at this stage, because women are already losing their say, so they are losing a lot of power within our communities, and I wouldn't want to see that slip any further. So definitely I will be.
I think they've been
lobbying
tremendous
for
peace
that.
builders.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, our theme of International Women's Day is No Peace Without Women this year in a few weeks' time.
I'd love to
And
hear about that.
If we're taking away funding that's enabling women and enabling peace within our communities as well, which they do play a major part in.
Okay,
Sorry,
I'll
I've
form
been on
that.
my
No, that's, you know
soapbox
what,
there a little bit,
it's
Chair, but-
very welcome, the comments, but I'd say we need to move on to other members. Don't worry, we'll come back to everybody if there are kind of final round-up comments, so to speak, but the case has been well made from where I'm sitting. Gregory?
Yeah, thanks for the representations. Very important issue. I'm sure we all sympathise, not just with this minister, but with all the ministers, given the difficult choices they have to make. And sometimes it comes down to what exceptionally good project can I cut today, because I'm looking at another exceptionally good project that I also have to cut, but don't wish to. But there were just two issues I wanted to zone in on. It was I think you, Jerry, had referred to it about the BSC, Building Successful Communities, and also then the issue that you mentioned, or that was mentioned next in the paper, about the housing co-ownership allocation. We're talking about 3 million capital funding on the BSC and 10 million in capital funding towards housing co-ownership. Now, both of those are exceptionally important issues, as I alluded to, but have you been, in any of the discussions you've had with officials, have you been able to put forward any sort of rationale by which you may be able to assist the department in value for money, you know, trying to extract the best value? And I'm thinking particularly of the housing co-ownership issue, and I do think that's important, because there's always a campaign to build more properties, and what's the best way to do it? And, you know, departments go down different routes at different times, but have you had an opportunity to try and talk through on those two issues, the combined total of 13 million, how it might be better spent, making obviously your case for your own sector within that?
No, we haven't had the opportunity, and you know, it's a very, very important point. You know, really what we're here to do is make a case for our sector, as will other sectors as well. So, you know, we're just sort of pointing out things that we see relevant to our sector, and like everyone will come in and make their own case, and everyone's case will be just as important to them as the other things are. Really what we are saying is that neighbourhood renewal is a very, very important mechanism for reaching those communities that most in need. I think the sum that's spent on neighbourhood renewal, and correct me if I'm wrong, is about 14-15 million per annum. That spread over the north, that reaches an awful lot of people. So, you know, in terms of value for money, that reaches a lot more people than some other initiatives do. But those other initiatives could have specific aims, and it's not up to us to sort of evaluate those. You know, with respect, you have the bigger picture, you see it all, you see more than, you know, we see, and in many ways we see it from a very narrow lens. But the narrow lens we see it is from the clients that we deal with, from the people who come through our doors. And, you know, again, in many ways, what we're trying to do is, you know, we're out, I think it was Glenn mentioned the Programme for Government. The Programme for Government is a document. We make it live in our communities. We help deliver it. We deliver confidence in this Assembly and confidence in the Executive. So when we go back on the 1st of April and the local person goes to the top of the weight track, they get the service that was there on the 31st of March, and it's no longer there, and the door's shut, and the building's vacant, and the organisation's gone, and dereliction's starting to creep in again. What we're saying is that's not a good picture for us to relay to our local community to say our politics is working. I spoke yesterday with the police, and they're appalled because they see the value in the community projects that are working in partnership with them in terms of delivering community safety on a very broad basis. They have asked us to keep them informed because they want to make representations about cuts, because they see the effect of cuts in health and wellbeing, education projects, the women's centres, all the projects that are being cut. They see the effect that it will have on them because it will make their job harder. So, you know, probably the broad answer is no, we haven't had that chance. But I really wouldn't be reluctant to get into evaluating one project against another.
I understand that. But has the issue come up particularly in terms of building successful communities vis-à-vis neighbourhood renewal? Did that come up?
Yeah. I know that in the west of the city there's, I think, 2 projects, one in the Lower Falls area and there's one up in Lenadoon area. And I think as Jerry was saying earlier, they're already 2 neighbourhood renewal areas, so both districts, they work with the range of statutory, private sector, community partners to draw up a development plan for the area. And part of those plans would have been some aspects of the building successful communities. Now, from their perspective, what they would say to you is, why not just deliver the plan that we've got here? You know, it has been hammered out through local consultation, discussion with agencies and so on. And in many respects, this almost was a layer that was put on top, a bit like, almost like a vanity project or whatever, that's the term I've heard. But in Falls, for example, you had your neighbourhood renewal plan and then you had your Falls intervention, you know, which actually brought additional city council facilitation and so on to deliver that plan. But then superimposed upon that along came, at no request from anyone, building successful communities. So there you had, you know, another one of these initiatives planked down, whereas local people were saying, could we not just stick with the one that we have? I think similarly up in Lenadoon, the same situation. What you're going to have is you may well have building successful communities initiative continue, but the legs will be cut under the neighbourhood renewal people who were there in the first place. Now, I think there was 3 million attached to that, and I guess us doing our ready reckoner, you know, and this is built on our submission to the consultation that was out there that was due in by 29th of December, and people were saying, instead of that, why not just stick to what the neighbourhood renewal local plans are?
Be happy enough with that response. Okay, there's no other member apart from Maggie Prada who wants to ask a question.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for the presentation. Well, I'll probably reiterate a lot of stuff Paul was saying, because I know in my own constituency, particularly in your neighbourhood renewal, has been extremely successful. And in parish communities, we hear a lot in the health about transforming your care. Now, what you're doing in health and wellbeing is what transforming your care presumably should have been doing in terms of care in the community. And I think you made the point, Jerry, and very rightly so, that there hasn't been a buy-in by other departments. The DSD has played fairly known for it. And you know, when you think of the work that you're doing in terms of preventative health and education in terms of health and wellbeing, then it seems reasonable the Department of Health should at least have its own input. Unfortunately, they don't. But you're absolutely right about building successful communities. It's just a duplication. I really, you know, if Neighbourhood Renewal is doing a good job, it's not broke, why fix it? Why introduce something else that duplicates and is completely nonsensical? You know, as you say, it's a vanity project. If somebody's come up, it seemed like a good idea at the time. But Neighbourhood Renewal is doing the job it was supposed to do, and continues to do it. And without that funding, the core funding, then, you know, you're going to be, because it bit difficulty, as you say, and a very valid point, how do you explain to somebody one day that the service is there and the next day it's not, for no good reason? Because the department can't give any good reasons for not providing that service. Because you're the ones that are taking the brunt of it, doing the work. You know, I think you should be commended for that.
Okay, could I, Rach, you're all right, Louise. Could I invite the delegation to say a few words, and I'll start from you, Rach, just to kind of wind up your remarks to the committee, because we've been a good exchange.
You're very smart not keeping me to the last, because I might talk too much. I just want...
The chair does have a habit sometimes of stopping people if they need
It's okay. I just wanted to reflect again on the role that Neighbourhood Renewal has played in the part in the lives of South Belfast. Very often, if you listen to Glenda's opening statement, she said, South Belfast, you know, we think it's legal, we think it's affluent. And Neighbourhood Renewal has allowed two specific areas of Stanley Row in the village and Inner South, which is Donegal Pass, the markets, and Lower Ormo, to have a spotlight shone on it. And South Belfast pulls all of that together. There's very articulate people in the community, in the 68,000 people in South Belfast, but in actual fact what that has allowed, it's given a voice to communities that have been pretty ground down. We've also got a number of at-risk areas, and I actually think, you know, we really need to keep the pressure on, because we need to keep eyes on the ball. 46% of the young people that are going into schools in South Belfast are coming from outside. That means everything's skewed. That means our neighbourhood children, we're going to keep them down. We can't really reach and educate them properly. So we need to keep the focus on Neighbourhood Renewal and those with the least voice. So thank you for this opportunity.
Appreciate that, please.
Okay, I simply say that I think, as far as we're concerned in terms of Neighbourhood Renewal and the work of the partnerships throughout the city and so on, that we are, the resource that we get is actually an investment in these communities, and it is helping you deliver the objectives for the Department for Social Development in terms of changing the lives of people, and also for the programme for government. It is about growing the economy. And it is about tackling disadvantage. These are the two planks of the programme for government going forward. I will say there is a little bit of, I guess, schizophrenia or whatever around this sector, because we do income generate a great deal, and we do stimulate the economy. But some of the ways in which many organisations do income generate very successfully. But many, like ourselves as partnerships, weren't actually set up. We were set up to bring partners. Key word is partnership here, key partners together to move people on. In neighbourhoods like ours, we didn't trot out all the statistics, Alex, that we had there, but neighbourhoods like ours, look, you'll have some people you could plank them down in the desert and they're going to do all right. You've kids that can be born in the lower falls and they'll do all right. Our job's not to work. You know, not to work with those who will do successfully, in a sense. Our specific job is to work with those who need assistance, and that is the direction of work that we are involved in. The disadvantage bit of the programme for government, it's all about raising people up, whether it's women or children or that. If you were to say to me in terms of stimulating the economy, I don't want to quote a former British Prime Minister, but my own view is education is the absolute heart of regeneration, and that's why our two top objectives are to get people educated, get them schooled properly. Because if you work with the schools, primary schools, post-primaries, the alternative education people who are here, to get people properly educated, then you're giving them a really good start in life. You're giving them the means to go on to university or into business or whatever and have a good start. So I would say that that's just one of the ways in which we stimulate the economy. The other thing I will say though about the whole income generation question and community organisations is I go back as far as 2011. Some of the statements that were made by ministers then is that they expected organisations to demonstrate a degree of income generation, and we have done that. But I'll give you an example of where another side of government maybe comes in and says, sorry, you are not allowed to make any money here. We have a project coming up, indeed there are many projects at which, like for example, we put in, I'm not funded wholly by DSD, but where we put in a daily rate. Now, people in government have absolutely no problem paying consultants very handsome rates. I think our rate was something like 250 a day or 300 or whatever to deliver a £3 million programme. And I was told, no, you cannot put in a daily rate, but we will sign your P11 for the X amount of hours you're spending on it. So on the one hand, government, I don't know if I've explained that properly. So on the one hand, government will say you must income generate. Other parts of government will say the last thing we want to see you doing is making a penny out of this. This has got to go to the front line. So that's we could talk all day about that, but I think it's a debate that needs to be had. Anyway, I hope we've put a reasonably full-rounded case, not just on behalf of ourselves, but our colleagues behind us here.
Okay, just in the interest of fairness, Jerry, and then Glenda, and then we'll...
You know, again, I would go back and contend that the community sector gives good value for money, that it works at that very grassroots level and also is an enabler for other agencies to come in and work with families and with people and whatever. In terms of value for money, our sector is audited like no other sector is audited, and you know, half our time is taken up. We've had many, the own organisation, we've had that many audits. I think I could work for Deloitte. I think I could go in and be an auditor because we know how it works that
well.
Get
your daily rate there.
Which goes back into our organisations, doesn't go to us. Yeah.
So, in that sense, you know, we have a proven track record to meet government standards and meet council standards and whatever. So, you know, in that sense, we have a proven track record in delivering. One of the things we have been pushing the department on was that we want to go to an outcomes-based model. Mm-hmm. So we want, and our sector has been the one pushing for that, because in many ways it's easy for us to deliver outputs. So how many attended your course, did they all attend, etc., etc. We're the ones pushing for outcomes because we want to see a difference. We want to see what difference we're making. So in that sense, we have nothing to fear from being looked at, being audited or anything. The other thing is that while our sector isn't about job provision in a sense per se, it's about service provision. However, neighbourhood renewal operates in areas of high areas that need high levels of regeneration. Economic generation is one. We could be talking in areas here, we could be talking across Belfast of a loss of, I don't know, maybe 150 jobs. Now, if that was a factory closing with the loss of 150 jobs, we would need to be talking about it. We'd need to be saying, well, is there anything we can do to assist that? So while that's not the sole reason for protecting those jobs, it certainly is a knock-on effect. And what we need is, you know, we need a champion in government for the community sector. DSD has been that champion in the past. Many other departments have paid lip service to it. DSD has put their money where their mouth is. DSD has done that, and we understand all the budgetary constraints. But I would go back and quote from the draft document that was put out before Christmas from DSD, and it says the need for the department to take what steps it can to make sure that persons and families, including the most vulnerable in our society, are protected from the harsher effects of the budget cuts. So other departments may just implement budget. The department recognises its responsibility to the ordinary person on the street and the families on the street. So, you know, I would ask your support in helping us to deliver on that.
Okay, and then
So thank you, and saving the best for last. I'm only joking. I'm going to keep mine brief. Just to say that I see this as an opportunity for DSD to almost get its own back. At the time when DSD ploughed the lonely furrow of neighbourhood renewal, and no other government department really came alongside it, this neighbourhood renewal provides the bedrock in communities for any change to be made. And all the other government departments are looking to us, even in the fact that we might not be here after the 31st of March, to support them for delivery across delivering social change, for delivery across the Social Investment Fund, and for a delivery across health programmes, PHA, so they are looking to our sector to support them. And we are, if Neighbourhood Renewal budget is protected, we will be there come the 1st of April to assist you to do that. So, and we're going to be moving into council and we're going to be moving into community planning, and therefore we need to be there to support the citizens. So, just kind of, we're hoping to catch a break here.
Stick with us, you'll get rid of us in a year anyway.
Okay, look, can I thank yourselves for making a very strong and passionate and cogent argument for your case and the concerns that you've very, very well articulated here this morning. I thank you for that, and
Thank you.
hopefully
Thank you.
we'll be
Thanks.
engaging with the due force again. Members, can I just ask before we move on to the next agenda item, just while we're here before all of you go for speak. I mean, just in view of that last presentation, given the urgency of the situation, are members minded to, because I'm just trying to suss out what people are thinking here, but certainly would members be of a view that they're not happy with what they're hearing about the process of engagement between the BRO and the organisation you've heard? Is it also accurate to suggest that people are sharing the concerns about potential negative impacts on some of those sectors that have been outlined, and we can communicate that to the Minister as a matter of urgency?
Absolutely.
Okay, members agree with that? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you very much. Okay. Did you get a note about the Albert Puckett place? Is it? So we're getting back. Yeah, because we have no quorum in a minute, so we need to take maybe a comfort break, 10 minutes, and then we're back in again. We'll complete all the rest of the business then after.